Hello, welcome everybody to the First 100 podcast. This is the podcast where we interview startup founders and leaders to find out exactly how they got their first customers at each stage of the journey. So first 10, first 100 and first 1000, because each step often takes a whole new approach. My name's Joel. I've been building businesses for over a decade now. I've been a growth advisor for over 100 startup teams. Some of them you will have heard of, but we don't care about me. We want to talk about Lottie Unwin today.
We do care about you, Joel.
Thank you, Lottie. I've done a little bit of research into you. I'm just going to give you a little backstory here, but please jump in if you want to make any edits to it. You've been in marketing for around 15 years. You've worked with some big dogs like P&G, Dolce & Gabbana Beauty, Lacoste Fragrance. For the last 10 years, you've been working as a head of marketing for several quantities, but most importantly, what we really care about is that you've been founder of Upworld, which again, we're going to dive into straight away. So Lottie, welcome to the show, firstly.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So let's start with a bit of a snapshot of what Upworld does today in your own words, because I won't be able to do it as much justice as you.
Yeah. So I'm obsessed with startup marketing, like you, Joel. That's like all I do in many different shapes and sizes. I now run 3 businesses. I'll start with the 2 that we're not going to focus on for the context. So one is my take on a recruitment business called UpTalent. I just hated working with recruiters and being recruited by recruiters, so I had a go at doing it myself. Brand Hackers runs fractional marketing teams. Instead of working direct with a freelancer or an agency, I think both of those models are broken for different reasons. We are a replacement. And then Upworld is the third thing I do, which has been running the longest, which is community and curated learning for individuals in marketing roles. That started as a supper club 10 years ago, 10, 12. I've been saying 10 years for way more than 3 years. It's too long ago to give a name to. And started as a supper club and there's now 1,200 members.
That's wonderful. And in fact, you've got ahead of me slightly there. I usually like to say that we want to jump all the way back to the origin story, but I already know that it started as a supper club, which is an exciting start and then a pivot into this. So talk to me about, so did the supper club was working? You just felt like a bit of a pivot? What made the change there?
No, I'd say it's been like much more of an organic journey. And I think I love the premise of this conversation, which is that it takes very different tactics at different sizes. And that's definitely true. But I think those tactics bleed into each other. So I don't think it's like 10 switch, 100 switch, 1,000 switch.
Yes,
It's much more of like a curve. I was a head of marketing in a startup, was really lonely, was really quite shit at my job, but trying as hard as I could, like really giving it my best. And I don't think I was bad at it because I wasn't good at that role. I was bad at it because there was so much I didn't know, because I was intrinsically out of my depth, because they were kind of underpaying me with an overinflated job title, because that's what startups do. Like that's how the whole thing works, is like we can't afford the talent we need, so we'll just stretch people. And that's why it's such a ride when you're in it, but it's really tough. And it was affecting my sense of identity and my home life, and like being unhappy at work. I think if you're a type A person who tries really hard, is like way more miserable than just being unhappy 9 to 5.
Absolutely.
It really throws you.
Yeah.
So I initially just started going for coffee with other people who were in my position. Then I started a supper club, which was just, let's get all these people together. They're really nice and I don't think they're hanging out otherwise. And then every time I'd get home from a dinner, the next day I'd have 5, 10, 15 introductions to other people who would also be interested in what I was doing. And so that's when it started to grow in terms of scale. Then we started to bring our teams along to things because, like, why not? You know, someone would say, like, can I bring my direct report? Because I think they'd be really interested in that conversation. And it's like, well, who am I to say no? Like, the whole point of this is meant to be inclusive.
Absolutely.
So that, I guess, was the first pivot, but it was sort of pivot at the time. It's just like the right thing to do. And then there was a bit more of a moment where I realized that if I was going to give a good service to people who were coming along for the ride, I had to start asking them for some money. And that wasn't grubby, but that was because I could put so much more value in if I had some financial freedom. So it used to be what I did on my Sunday nights. And I was like, well, if I'm getting paid for this and I could spend 2 days doing this, then imagine how much better it could be. So that, I think, was an actual pivot.
Absolutely.
And then it kind of another set of snowballs from that until we are where we are now, where there's like 4.5 full-time employees that run it. And I guess now it feels like a bit more of a business, but even then it's very much driven by it's driven by the impact I can have and what it does to my personal brand and the joy I get from it and the fact that I genuinely think it changes lives in like a small way. This is never going to be like a money spinner. Like building a community is a terrible way to make money. So I do it for very different reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the point that you touched on there. So people use the word pivoting all the time, myself included, but it's not at the time. It doesn't always feel like a pivot. Sometimes something's really wrong. We need to make a big change. But when I look back in my businesses, the biggest changes that had happened were the ones that I didn't even notice happen. They were just kind of one sensible decision at a time. And we ended up in a completely different place to where we were 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. I also understand that, you mentioned there that the first 10 customers, 100, 1,000 don't really segment very easily like that. And that partially would be why, because we don't even notice these things organically change. But it's great that
I think I do notice them. But what's interesting about running a community is that you're, as opposed to like selling anything, selling like tea on the internet, what's different is that your customers are so close to you. So your only experience is them having conversations with you or with your team. Like that's what they're paying for. They're paying for being part of something. And so it's very easy to be incredibly customer led in a community business. In a product business, it's very easy to get stuck in your like boardroom feeling behind a laptop where you actually stop
in your dashboards, looking at your data.
In your dashboards behind your iMac. Like it's very easy to just forget that there's consumers at the other side of what you're doing. And so I think the reason, yes, I think we've been changing a lot. I think it's been very intentional, but I don't think it's felt like pivots because instead it's just felt like following the audience.
Yes, absolutely.
So it is intentional. And I think the reason that brands do have to pivot, which feels dramatic, is because they've lost sight of their customer. And so they're like pivoting because they're like, we've really gone the wrong way.
Yeah, sure.
If you just stay close to your customer, you never have to turn dramatically because you never go that far off course.
That's a wonderful way of putting it. Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. So if I could steer us, speaking of steering, if I could steer us in the direction of speaking about marketing and growth specifically. So you mentioned there a little about the early days of how you got your first groups going. Let's look into maybe a few years into this project where you've started to kind of really define your offer and you know what you're doing for these communities, you know what the events are looking like. What would you credit a lot of your exposure to? What specific marketing activities do you think you undertook that gave the most effect on the rest of the business?
Yeah, I've posted on LinkedIn every day for 5 years. And that is by far and away the single most powerful decision I've made to find new members.
Congratulations. That's lovely.
Thanks. It's been a labor of love. But it's genuinely been fantastic and it's made such incredible things happen. So that's the big thing. Then the product is good enough that people talk about it. So I think word of mouth always feels a bit flippant and is a bit like,
yes,
I don't know, I think it's like a crap label when actually what we really mean by that is do something so exceptional that your target market finds itself because there's status and kudos in tipping someone off about what we do. Absolutely. So I think our members are really proud to say, look, I'm involved with this thing and I think you might really like it.
Yeah.
And so that's been really powerful.
Absolutely. On that note, have you ever tested incentivizing word of mouth or some sort of trying to put petrol on the fire of the word of mouth, even though you're not too keen on the quote?
Yeah, that's because one, we've got so many interesting dynamics. And again, this is why referral can be super powerful, but it's way more nuanced than just give £10, get £10.
Yes.
So for our customer, often their company's paying for it, not them. So
Yeah.
I don't really care if I'm going to save my business £10. So giving me just like a cashback doesn't really cut the mustard. Equally, because our customers, our members love what we do, they've told everyone about it anyway. So we did this really interesting thing. We got like, this was like last year, we got 5 or 10 of our like super fans to come out for dinner with us. And we took them all out for a pizza and we asked them a load of questions. And one of them was, how can we get you to refer us to more people? And they were like, well, I've told everyone I know, but the reason I've joined the community is because I want to meet more people. So I wouldn't be here if I didn't need it. And we were like, oh
yeah. Yeah.
That's so obvious. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, if you had this massive network, you wouldn't need our business.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, it turned out that they already knew everyone. And the one thing we've done that's been really effective, I always use this anecdote, I think it's really powerful if you're thinking about anything, is once we said, we're at like 995 members. Whoever refers the 1000th member will turn up at your office with a box of donuts. And it's the first time we ever really moved the needle because it was silly.
Yes.
Because these people don't care about a tenner. They don't care about like whatever kudos on LinkedIn we were going to offer them. They were just like, that's really funny. Sure. And we saw, like, I can't remember what it was. We saw like 20 new members in 5 minutes. Like it responded.
Absolutely.
And so I always kind of counsel, like if I think about how I play this into like the work I do with brands, I always counsel that you have to be just way more intentional about thinking about what is genuinely going to get someone to talk to someone else about what you do. And you've got to understand the psychology behind why you would talk to someone else and how someone's going to feel about that. So in our case, people feel really proud and a bit on the inside for knowing about us. Yeah. And so in a way, what they respond to most is just us calling them to say, look, that's so lovely of you. We're so grateful. Or us like showing up with a comedy bunch of flowers or a massive box of donuts. That's what gets them going.
Yeah, absolutely. That's wonderful. I'm going to jump back a little bit to the core thing that you said, move the needle for your business before we started talking about word of mouth. LinkedIn every single day for 5 years.
Yeah.
Talk to me about why did you start knowing that it was going to be such a long-term thing? A lot of people are trying on LinkedIn. I've been on there for 3 or 4 years. I've got some audience, but nothing quite like yours. It's very impressive. I have tried all of the strategies. I have found some things that work for me. However, I don't think that they're the same things that seem to be working for other people. What would you say is the core input that you do to succeed in LinkedIn content strategy?
The honest answer, I'm pausing because I'm trying to think of something sort of cleverer, but the honest answer is that I just show up. I just show up as me every day. And I'm influenced by other stuff I've seen go viral for sure. Yeah, I'm influenced by trying to really think about like, right, what is an audience actually going to want to see versus what do I want to say? And I think they're quite different things. Yeah. But my personal brand has evolved to be very focused on authenticity. So like basically just me being as straightforward as I can and trying to surface topics that like I think if I was having a drink with someone, they'd be interested in talking about. And that's like, that just feels like a way more helpful filter for me personally than anything else.
Absolutely. I think that the simplest answer in marketing is often the best answer. And I think in this exact scenario, I think showing up as yourself repeatedly for a long period of time would be the most effective thing. I'm guessing you had to start by consciously thinking, I need to turn up every single day. And you had to work that into your daily kind of workflow. And then has it become natural to you over the years? And it's just something that you don't even
the way I always coach this is like the first 30 days are pulling teeth and it's miserable. Yeah. But in those 30 days, I guarantee you something will happen that will make you hooked. So whether that's like you get an invite to something or you get a connection request from someone you're desperate to talk to or a DM, or it just takes one little moment of magic and then you kind of see the pot of gold. And it's incredibly cringe going to like a school wedding and everyone being like, oh, I know what you're up to. Like I see your posts. I'm like, oh, that's awful. But fundamentally, like I'm making really good money from it. And I'm like, I employ loads of people and I've got this great life and I'm doing all of that basically because of LinkedIn. So like, it's not that cringe anymore, is it?
Yeah.
And that's the take I think you get to really quickly when you get a bit of a payback.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree. So not quite at your level, but I've been running a YouTube channel and, as I said, LinkedIn for a couple of years. And now when I go home to my hometown and I see people from school, they all have an opinion on it and they want to tell me about it every single time. And I was quite embarrassed about it for a while, but at the time I was also quite embarrassed of my output. The content wasn't good enough, but now I'm to a point where I'm like not embarrassed and I'm like, oh, you saw that? That's good. What did you think of it? And they say, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's just strange jargon you're using. But it's a very funny journey that we as kind of content creators have to go on.
Yeah. And the bit where it's a bit embarrassing, I think I'm always at that point. Like every time I level up, every time you level up your production, you just like level up your expectations. So I'm eternally embarrassed by my output. And I don't think that's ever going to change. And so I just have to try and be really kind to myself and detach slightly. Like I'm now at a point where like that version of me is just like a funny, not alter ego, but I can like laugh at myself.
Character.
Totally,
Yeah, no, I think that's the signal of a very high performer, as somebody who would just reach a level and consistently want more. Otherwise, that's where we get our motivation from to push to the next level. Because if we didn't have that, then we'd just be very complacent and sit at the same level. But I remember being extremely embarrassed then, and I am less embarrassed now. So I think there is progress to be made. But I guess you're suggesting that there's kind of a plateau or kind of terminal velocity of embarrassment of your own content, where you will always be wanting to be one step ahead, but you're actually here.
I think you can flip this. I think if you're not a bit embarrassed, you've probably overinvested, because I think there's a real, like on all of this growth journey, I think there's a real importance about just like getting stuff out the door and like a bias to action.
Yeah.
And if my podcast is a great example of this. I've got a really good friend who runs a like national, very successful, very, very successful podcast. And she cannot believe that I don't script my episodes, that I don't have a professional hair and makeup, like all of this stuff that I'm like, obviously I don't, because it's like a small B2B thing I do as a passion project. That would to me feel ridiculous. So it's like, I think it's really important at every stage that you're just kind of shipping whatever the product is, you're just like shipping it and learning as you go, versus tying it up with a bow, having spent a ton of money on it without having any in-market feedback. So I guess that's me like rebranding the embarrassment in my head as like highly strategic and necessary.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a reframe is all you need sometimes, and it'll stop the blockers. Yeah.
Exactly.
So diving back into your LinkedIn strategy, is there anything above and beyond posting that you do on a day-to-day basis that you think is important if people are trying to grow an audience that you've got? You're up to 50K followers or so now, aren't you?
Yeah. Yes. The model is that you should be like, the ideal is that you put great content out there. You have a really good DM strategy. So you're following up with people who view your page. You're thinking about how you start conversations, and then you're doing great stuff in the comments, and you're being really clever on other people's feeds. Sure.
Yeah.
I get really worried about talking about that too much, because I think most people hear that and go, okay, well, I've got to start with threefold strategy. And I think that's the equivalent of like me being like, I've never gone on a run, but I'm going to start with my ultramarathon training plan. I just think it's ridiculous. It's like, just run around the block and stop overthinking it. And so I do loads of webinars on this, and people are like, what's your ideal LinkedIn tech stack? And I'm like, cool, just post a bit and then we'll talk about that in a year. Like, let's just start.
Yes.
So yes, now I have a team. I have an assistant who helps me with my DMs. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, but I almost don't want to talk about that publicly, because I think it's really off-putting to people who are just like overwhelmed by it.
I completely understand that. And I think a lot of startup founders, including myself at times, have been just obsessed with knowledge acquisition rather than knowledge application. And I think
that's such a good point.
What we love to do is, we're going to build the perfect strategy and I'm going to learn every possible thing. When if I just put that energy into doing it not as well, I will have got better results.
And I probably would have worked out the answer and it would have stuck because I got it myself, as opposed to like reading it in a PDF. Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah, exactly. Lovely. Okay, moving on from LinkedIn. So is there any other, so we've spoken about LinkedIn, word of mouth just kind of comes from your community and your product being the best that it possibly can be. Is there any other things that stand out to you as a lever that you've pulled to help grow your audience or your businesses in general?
I think the other thing that might be kind of unique, like I can say all the boring stuff, like we send loads of emails and we do lots of good community customer relationship management, blah blah. I think the thing that we do uniquely is that I run these 3 businesses, and that means that above everything I'm doing, there's this kind of ecosystem that means if anyone calls me with any startup marketing question, I can help. It's like this big net. Like I can like scoop, I'm like trawling. I can like scoop up kind of the bottom of the ocean and sort out all of it and be useful. And that doesn't necessarily mean I get business from all of it, but it means that I can add value. That means that in turn, we stay top of mind, that someone will come back to us in the future. I think that's kind of worth talking about, because every time I meet a new advisor or I bring someone external into the business, they're very quick to tell me that I'm trying to do too much, because it really looks like it.
Yeah.
They're probably right. But the story I tell myself, which I think is also true, so it's kind of worth entertaining, is that each of those bits is so much stronger because of the sum of the parts. And that if I turned off one part of what I do, the whole thing falls. And I think there's a lot of value in trying to think about how you can service any inquiry without, like, how you can offer your customer everything they could need without getting distracted. And those things feel like an oxymoron, but for me, it's been really effective. And so that's been, okay, I want to add a recruitment arm to what I do, because loads of people join the community. They join Upworld and they really want to get a new job, and I can't help them. So I could say, great, go over there to this recruiter. But what happens if I do that is that I like lose trust in that relationship. When instead, if I can say, chat to our recruitment team and they have a great experience with our recruitment team, they then come back to Upworld when they want training, and it like stays within the circle. But I've done that by saying, okay, I'm going to start a recruitment business. It's going to be completely separate. It's going to be run by a completely separate team. There's going to be no resource drain. So it's different to saying we're going to do everything. It's saying quite strategically, how can we also support in a way that is clean and separate and not a distraction, but makes each part of what we do stronger?
Absolutely. That sounds like an operational complexity nightmare if you were to try and do it all under one umbrella. Exactly. Instead, you're kind of segmenting them, and then you're the common denominator across all of them. As the lead.
And I really believe in giving people and services real focus on what they're delivering. Yeah. So, exactly. As opposed to stretching a brand identity or stretching an individual to say you're doing these 10 different roles, you just sense check that it's big enough for it to be a standalone thing, and then run it as a standalone service.
Yeah. And does that create a very long work day for you every single day, I'm assuming?
Well, I'm currently on mat leave, which is an interesting, so I've got a 3.5-month-old son. So I'm in like an interesting.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yes, I'm really I've been on a fascinating kind of personal journey over the last 18 months to like work out how I can do all of these things and take on this like massive fourth other thing of trying to look after a human.
Yes.
And so the answer is currently no, it's not a long work day at all. It's like a couple of hours when I can get a bit of childcare. Yeah, in the past, like getting all 3 things moving has been, it's been grind. I don't want to, I think it's really important. I don't think it's helpful to pretend it's easier than it is. I don't think it's helpful to be like, it's the hardest thing ever, woe is me. But I think you need to go into this very eyes wide open. And I think, there's no shortcut to 1,000 customers without proper hustle. Like we're not far off the point where every single member was a phone call, where like I couldn't tell you where we found every single new member. That's the tipping point for me from the pivot from 500 to 1,000 is when you get to the point where you can stop literally being like, this is Joel, I met him at this thing, he's now a member.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. It sounds to me like the core to your growth and your business success has been from energy output rather than any technical, clever, strategic move. Would that be a correct summation?
Yeah. I'm cautious to say like firm yes, because it's been an awful lot of grind plus a product that gives you a bit of a flywheel.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, there's no like AI wizardry.
Yeah, sure.
For one, there's nothing magic going on. It's like how.
Okay, so let's move on to the section of the podcast where we'd like to talk about mistakes and lessons. So throughout this whole journey with any of your businesses, What really didn't work? Is there campaigns, hires, or assumptions, any massive decisions that you do differently?
Yeah, I think I think what we've really found in Upworld, which I can see is true in lots of D2C businesses I've consulted for, is letting ambition get the better of you and trying to falsely assume that you can manipulate levers in a way that you've got no evidence of in the past. So there's been a few moments where I've said, we're going to double membership next year, or we're going to double revenue next year for a different business. The way I've said I'm going to do that is to kind of put the foot on the gas of channels that are untested, as opposed to saying, I've got the data that this is working, and I've got the data that if I put X% more in, I'm going to get Y back. Instead, I've gone, it's kind of working, and I've never tested whether it's going to scale or not, but I'm just going to back that it will. Yep. And then the inevitable happens, which is that it does a bit, but it doesn't quite respond.
It's always somewhere in between, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's not disaster. It's not amazing.
Yeah, it kind of moves a bit, but efficiency drops, or there's some other thing that you didn't really plan for. And as a result, you're always way off forecast.
Yeah.
And I think I'm really lucky in that I'm 100% owner of my business and I don't have any investors to force myself to grow for. But I'm very ambitious and I really chase growth because I really believe in what we're doing and I want to do it for more people. But when I've kind of forgotten that this is fundamentally, as you said, a business that's led by like energy plus excellent product experience plus word of mouth, whenever I've forgotten that and tried to go too hard, too fast, I've overhired, I've demotivated the team by setting goals we can't achieve, and actually probably got myself to a way worse place than I would have ended up if I just really focused on continuing to do what we do really well.
Yes.
It's like there's like a gentle curve, and every time I try and inject a hockey stick, we kind of end up dropping down a bit more before we rebase.
Yeah.
So I think all of my mistakes come back from kind of, too hard, too fast.
Absolutely. So has your approach changed? How has your approach changed to that specific issue that you've noticed in yourself?
We're just really careful to make sure that we're spending enough time experimenting with the playbook and like testing, exploring, celebrating when stuff doesn't have a meaningful impact. And then only when we have real confidence in a playbook do we then kind of commit to it delivering. So if I think about my 2026 forecast, it's going to look very different to like my 2024 forecast, where I was like, that's going to be great and that's going to go like that and that's going to be amazing. And now I'm like, no, this is my base and I understand it. And I understand that these things are kind of business as usual projects for the team. And I try and think in terms of business as usual and change projects. So these things are business as usual. They know how to do them. We know how to do them to a really high standard. We're really proud of the output. And then there's a extremely limited number of change projects. And they don't have big forecast or revenue expectations against them until we've run them a couple of times.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. That's great. I'm moving on to the final section of the podcast, which is if you could time travel back to when you started, so 2012, 2013, what would you tell that version of Lottie about your journey ahead?
I'm smiling because I think it's just like nice things. I don't think I'd say like, don't get tripped up by that. I think I'd just be like, keep following your instincts, like really enjoy it, allow yourself to dream big. And I really believe that all of my success is because I've just listened to my customer the whole way. And I just give her a good pat on the back and be like, just listen to the members and just like really stay connected to what they do and worry about everything else later. Let it all follow.
Sure. That's a lovely answer. How heartwarming. I think that's a wonderful way to end the podcast. For the audience at home, if you're still listening to this podcast, I'm guessing it's because Lottie's story has resonated with you in some sort of way. So Lottie, where can people connect with you and what should they do if they want to learn more about Upworld or any of your other businesses?
It's got to be LinkedIn. I can't give you such a heartfelt spiel about the power of LinkedIn and not direct it all back to there. So find me on LinkedIn. Send me a message if you want to hear more about anything. Check out Upworld, which is up-world.co. We have a nice podcast, which, as I talked about, has some good content, dodgy production quality.
Sure.
And which I'm proud of. And just get in touch. Like, honestly, I just love it when people send me a message and say, that they think I could do this better, or this would be interesting, or this is what resonated.
Cool. Thank you very much, Lottie. It's been a
Right.
pleasure speaking to you.
Thanks for having me.